when he woke in the woods, in the dark and the cold of the night, he'd reach out to touch the child sleeping beside him. Nights dark beyond darkness, and the days more gray, each one than what had gone before. Like the onset of some cold glaucoma dimming away the world. His hand rose and fell softly with each precious breath. He pushed away the plastic tarpaulin and raised himself in the stinking robes and blankets and looked toward the east for any light, but there was none. So begins Cormac McCarthy's The Road. It doesn't get better than that. I've read the book twice now. Why? Partly I'm a sucker for father-son narratives. There's also something about post-apocalyptic visions that feels resonant. And if there's a prophet, just ask the staff team, I always want to preach on that text. Bleak. There's something about the gray landscape here that I can locate myself in. The yellow brick road is okay every once in a while, but it's a bit much. For there are realities, important ones, that are resting in the shadows that may yet yield to our observation. Undeniably bleak. That was our staff reaction to this morning's scripture at Bible study this week. There is no way around the bleakness. You must enter into it, pass through it, hope you come out the other side. Jesus looks at his disciples and stares down a road that not one single person wants to walk down, including him. The temple's going to collapse. Many will come pretending to be the Messiah. There will be wars and revolutions. Nations and kingdoms are going to turn on each other. Earthquakes, plagues, famines, terror, and signs. But before this happens, you will be seized and persecuted, handed over to religious leaders and imprisoned, brought before kings and governors. And I love how the First Nations version of the New Testament puts it. But remember, this will be your chance to represent me and tell them the good story. That is the gospel. In other words, the temple collapsing, not the crisis. The plague and the persecution, not the crisis. But if we don't know the good story, that's the crisis. You see, when we're walking along the yellow brick road and the sun is shining, then sitting around and telling stories about the scriptures is just a nice thing to do or not. But along the road, when the temple is no longer and disease has riddled the land, well, those stories are going to keep you alive. And in the vast and swirling gray of whatever exists on this side of the pandemic, and wherever this pandemic road is taking us, I'm betting my life on the good story. For out there on the road, I can tell you this, you will not survive on your own. Our diocesan bishop asked me to sit on a small team that's developing the next strategic vision for the diocese. And a few weeks ago, that group asked me if I would sit with all the data from all the clergy days. And what this means is a bunch of clergy, a few hundred, have gotten together in person and online, and we've just captured verbatim notes. And they asked me if I would sift through them to say what I heard. It feels like a privilege to hold that kind of information or those stories. Also, maybe feels like a burden. For they are firsthand accounts of what it has been like to journey the road these past 3 years. It's like sitting around the campfire at the end of the day, or maybe driving with your dad in the car, and you don't look, but you look straight ahead. And your face is half lit by the dashboard or the fire, and half shadow, and you utter words in that moment that only your fellow travelers would understand. This is verbatim. We'd like to start dreaming, but everyone is so tired. We need to name the truth. Why isn't everyone coming back? Burnt out. There's unresolved grief as part of the pandemic. Why are people not back? We still have Jesus. I'm exhausted, been trying to do too much. The future does not always look like abundance. It's dangerous to travel such a road on your own, so I brought someone with me, Pamela for one, but also Old Testament scholar Walter Brueggemann. And in his book, The Prophetic Imagination, it is absolutely mind-blowing, because in a very real way, it is about the catastrophic endings that the people of God have experienced and the utterly unexpected newness that only God can bring about. And he writes this: the real criticism of the way things are begins in the capacity to grieve, because that is the most visceral announcement that things are not right. Sometimes it seems to me our entire existence seems shaped to make us feel numb, to go about half drunk, eyes at half mast, running about half crazed with busyness and anxiety. And we scroll through the feeds of 1,000 other people who look happier than we are, but they are not. And all their roads look shiny, and ours looks gray and bleak. Well, friends, I'm here to tell you just one thing this morning. Bleak is a gift. For to name aloud that things are not right, to truly grieve, is the first syllables of the prayer that God would set things right. Bleak is a reminder to start telling the good story. Just start telling it. See how much of it you remember. Let's remind one another what that good story says and who it is about. For that is what's going to save us in the end. I close with Jesus' words to us from the First Nations version of the New Testament. but none of these things can truly harm you. So you must stand up strong and never give up trusting in me. For my life inside you will help you walk with firm steps.